So, welcome into this second mini class, which is about taking you out of circling around and helping you have a few tools to move forward towards the vision that you have for your story. So, the first one was all about the what ifing and brainstorming through to the end of your book if you could possibly do that. And you were offered the opportunity to do that again. And so, very quickly, I just love to see a little show of hands for those of you with me last week. How many of you were able to go back through and try it again or try that Butler method? Mary? Okay, great. Laura? Oh, great. So everybody got in there and did that. Now, Rebecca, you might not have been here for that one. Yeah.
I wasn't. Yeah, I
Yeah,
wasn't
that's
there.
okay. All right. So,
Sorry.
were there any big revelations for you in doing that? Does anyone want to share, or do you have any questions about that? Yeah, Laura.
Um, I discovered a whole lot about the main character that I didn't know, and it even made me question about whether I was even starting in the right place. I
Oh,
mean, what I've discovered might all just be backstory, but I don't know. And it was really surprising. And I mean, there's so many more what ifs to ask.
right. So, are you
Yeah,
giving yourself some time to actually do that, to spend a little more time in the what ifs?
I will. I think I'm going to have to spend a long time there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's very reasonable to give yourself at the Bones of Storytelling when I'm teaching the 10-week class, I give people 2 full weeks to play in that space because those 2 full weeks just allow us to be thinking at that level. And when we're thinking at that level, then that's where we're directing our attention versus thinking, about the scenes we're going to be writing in any given moment. So yeah, give yourself a couple of weeks to exist in this space. I'm glad that produced some fruit for you. It's such a terrific exercise. Anybody else want to share what happened? Yeah, Mary and Eugene.
I just can't believe that even after all the time I've been working on this book, all the edits and everything, that I still see new things in the what
Right.
ifs. I'm like, oh my God. Because I do know that everything has to relate, to a central theme and stuff. So I need to think about it more. And I thought, oh, I don't want to think about it more.
Sure.
Still, you know what I mean? I'm at the point where I think I should know everything, but I don't.
Yeah, well, it's again, the what ifs are just such a palate cleanser. They take us
Yeah.
back and they help us kind of start to see again what we thought we were super familiar with, right?
Yes, that's what's
Yeah.
freaking
Oh,
me
I'm
out.
really, really glad. I'm glad to hear that. So that's a great tool for both of you, Laura and Mary and Eugene, the other Mary. To it's working for you, and that's good. It's a tool for the toolbox. That's the goal with
Yeah.
all of these exercises. What tools are you going to have in your toolbox? Well, you'll only know if you play with them and experiment with them. How many of you are gardeners? I'm a big gardener. So when you are working in any form, you get the tools that work for you. And initially, you have to buy way more tools than you end up liking. So I'm a gardener and I have several pairs of clippers. Which ones do I like the best, right? And so the ones that I don't like rust in the bottom of my bucket. And the ones that I do, I take really good care of because they work for me. They feel right in my hand and they do the job that I want them to do. And that's exactly what writing is like. There are probably about, I would say, 40 or so tools you need as a writer. And so that means you need to play with them and practice with them. And what ifing is one of those tools. So great. That's the whole point of you learning that last time and playing with it over the course of this week. That's wonderful. And if did anybody try the Butler method, which was the dream storming?
I did.
Okay.
I
How did that go for you?
It's too passive for me.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I really gave it a shot, and I don't know. It's like yoga. To me, yoga is just a total waste of time. It's just too passive, you know? I mean,
Sure.
I don't know. It for me, it didn't work.
Yeah, so that's very helpful to know too. And so for Rebecca, who's listening to this, if you watch the video from that last week, Rebecca, it's there on Flight School. You'll understand
Mhm.
the Butler method and the explanation of that. And it could be one of those things. It's just like, this is not a tool I'm ready to use
Oh
right
no, that tool was 1,000% for me.
now. Okay, so the Butler
That is
method worked for
complete.
you.
Well, I haven't done it yet, but that one, when I looked at the two, that is 1,000% how stories and things come to me. So
Perfect.
that makes that made total sense to me. So I can't wait to try that one.
Good, perfect. And I actually included a story for the people who were in last week's class that I tried. So, Rebecca, I'll send that to you to kind of show you how I use that method.
Oh, awesome.
It's one
Great.
of those tools that you really have to be very trusting with and surrender to a lot. And it doesn't necessarily provide instantaneous results, right? So I'm trying to think of like a drug. Some of us have to wait 20 minutes for the relief of pain with our Advil, right? But we want to be out of pain now.
Mhm.
And so Advil starts to really frustrate us, right? So a hot pad can give us instant relief. And then, of course, Advil will come charging in a little bit later. So, right. Okay. So you've got to be picky about which blackberries you pick. Very nice. Exactly. Exactly. You just try to pick and choose, pick and choose. Okay. So, again, you guys are in the second class. And again, welcome to this class. And we've done that one and we're refreshing a little bit about what happened with last week. And now we're talking about plot. And plot is, and I've been working on plot and thinking of plot for a long time. So, plot is such an incredible tool. And initially, when I first learned about plot, I was like, whatever, there can't be only seven. There's got to be a ton more. I was extremely pessimistic because that's how I operate in the world, or I did then. And actually, there are lots and lots of plots according to whichever author or writing teacher you're talking to. But what we're doing with Christopher Booker is we're talking to the master of study of story, and the seven basic plots by Christopher Booker is a 30-year dissertation of all story, all the way back to the earliest stories. So he's looking from the classic evolution of the story form and really how we as human beings have evolved with story. And so this to me feels like a foundation stone on which we can build our own stories and create something that has a timeless quality versus a trendy quality, which is right now. You can go to an amazing book like Story or The 13 Ways This is Story by Robert McKee or The 13 Ways of Looking at the Novel by Jane Smiley. And you'll have different classifications for stories. In fact, Jane Smiley in this book, 13 Ways of Looking at the Novel, actually does what's something called the circle of the novel. And those are classifications, almost like what you would find when you go into a bookstore and say you're looking for memoir. Well, memoirs under many classifications. And so does at some level have certain elements of expectation attached to them. I expect when I go to this section of a bookstore, I'm getting this kind of book. So the circle of novel study that she does in this wonderful book starts to show us those categorizations. Categories are not the same, or genres are not the same as plot. Plot is a structural device. So here's an example. She talks about the circle of the novel, and this is a chapter in this 13 ways of looking at it. So there's travel, history, biography, tale, joke, gossip, diary, letter, confession, polemic, essay, epic, romance. So those are all categories of book, but they're not plot. Every single one of those categories has one of the seven basic plots embedded within it as a natural evolution of how we understand story as human beings. And so in this book, Story, it's the same thing. He has a whole bunch of categories and genres and subgenres. And again, other writers will come up, they'll say 12 plots, or there's only 5 plots, or according to Joseph Campbell, there's just one plot, the hero's journey, right? So it can be very confusing as writers. Like, well, how much energy and attention do I put on plot? And I'm like, well, first and foremost, understand what plot is, which is what Christopher Booker in the Seven Basic Plots gives us. And so that's a longer introduction to this conversation to help you categorize or think about how you've been looking at your story and looking at the seven basic plots and trying to do this connection. Which one is mine? Right? And there often is three or four, sometimes two. Sometimes for the writer who's done multiple drafts multiple times, they get this aha, oh my gosh, it can only be this plot. And that's a very cool revelation. But again, it's not something you force on the story. It's something that the story reveals to you. And the way it gets revealed to you, we're going to talk about after I pair you guys up to have some conversations about this. So, Conrad, are you still with me or are you just driving? He's still there. Okay, so he must just be listening. All right, so I'm going to keep Rebecca with me and I'm going to pair you ladies up together. And what I want you to do is by talking to each other, I want you to tell your partner which plot you think it was or multiple plots and why. Right. And if there's time, the person who's listening can ask a few questions about if they're curious. Okay. Or then we just switch. And then the other person says, okay, I think these are my plots. And here's why. And that why is very important. So when you come back, we're going to be thinking about the why. Why is it working that way? It can't be just a feeling. There's something actually concrete and specific that revealed itself to you. And what was that? What's the why that gave you that reason? Okay. Okay. So which plot was you?
Well, it was interesting. I'm going to go off. It
That's
was
fine.
interesting. I was drawn to Rags to Riches,
Okay.
but also because I'm doing a sort of memoir. It's fiction, but it's loosely based on memoir. I wondered about the voyage one,
Okay.
just because you talked about how that is really good for memoir. The transformation can be sort of what we would call the double I, the being in it and then looking back.
Right.
But I also really liked the comedy one. But I think so the reason I liked comedy was because it's only three, and that just seemed really easier.
Sure. Sure.
But
That
and
makes
also I want
sense.
to write something funny. But I think the Rags to Riches was really interesting because I have the time span of the book is from the year before this person's mother dies. She's struggling. The struggle is with money all throughout, and creativity. And I liked Rags to Riches because I think I would want to do a spin on the riches being the richness of integrating the full self. Like that's the riches. The riches isn't necessarily the money, it's the integration of all gifts and talents for this particular person who's discovering their psychic abilities and while their mother is sick and dying, and then the year after.
Okay. So go back and you said you're writing a fictional, like a novel, but it's based
It's
on a true experience.
based on a true experience, yeah.
And when you say it's a novel, do you have like a novel that you've read or a series of novels that you really like that you're kind of connecting?
It's probably going to be a novel in stories. That's kind of how I operate. I
Okay.
don't usually do I'm not very good at sustaining a long narrative arc. I like to do it in vignettes. Um, so that's all I've ever written is novel and stories.
Okay.
So I think it'll probably be that. And when I think of that, I kind of think of Winesburg, Ohio, but only because Winesburg, Ohio was so good at capturing these fleeting moments. Some of the later stuff in Winesburg, Ohio, where he tries to have a narrative arc, I don't like. So I don't really have a model for it.
Okay. Okay. So you're trying something kind of experimental. So let's go
Hmm
back and you said you've written other things. What have you
hmm
written prior to this?
Oh, I've written two books. One was a novel and stories, and the other was a memoir and stories.
And
So,
so did you go the distance I mean, you got them published?
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. The first one was a bestseller, New York Times bestseller. The second one was a, pick of the month in the Mother Lode in the New York
Who were you
Times.
published with?
Simon and Schuster.
Oh, wow. Okay. And how long ago was that?
First one was 2008, and the second one was 2013 or 14. I can't remember.
Okay. So, Rebecca, what's your last name so I can look you up?
Barry,
Barry.
B
Okay.
A B A R R Y.
Yeah. And so here you are again working on
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. And they're always, I mean, they're always, I go through something. I do about a book every 10 years. It's like I go through something, I digest it, and then I turn it into something. I don't write fast. I don't, it's just like I have to really process something in order to make it into a creative piece.
Right.
So I'm about at that, I'm about at that place again where it's like, okay, I think I have enough material. But this time I really wanted to, the second book was a memoir. And I feel like because this material has so much psychic and intuitive stuff in it, I want the freedom of not having to really feel like the reader is. I want the freedom of something that I can really play with in the just play with the details and play
So
with the
in your
ghosts.
study and all of your prepper work to become the writer that you are,
Mhm.
how much study have you done? And have you come across either what ifing or the Butler method? Have you come across any of what we've been talking about?
Not specifically like that. I mean, I got an MFA and I've taught writing for years.
Right.
I don't think specifically like that, but I do a lot of, when I teach, I ask people to really come at it from a very like a dreamy, not a dreamy state, but we write, I sort of give them a prompt and we write, and my prompts are very, they're designed to help you just not have to think about what you're doing, to pull it in from the unconscious creative mind. So you're what's fabulous about what I absolutely love about what you're doing is you have sort of the very concrete bones part
Right.
that I have not seen as I've taken courses on plot, but they weren't very helpful because I just really need someone to almost walk me through it and say, okay, you know, like I actually took a course on TV writing once, and those people took my idea, and every day we did, okay, these are the next events that you're going to write about. And then I would, and then by the end, we actually had a TV script. And
Right.
for me, because I don't think about plot ever, and it all comes through this sort of intuitive lens, it's so helpful for me to have a concrete plot. But I almost need my hand held the whole way because my brain
Yeah.
just doesn't do that. So I kind of have, but not quite as specifically as you're doing it.
Right, right. And we're definitely, I mean, yeah, it's very interesting because if you're having the kind of success that you've had, you've been exposed to a lot of teachings. And
Yeah.
this is the thing I'm always like really curious about is like, well, what have you learned up to this point? And here you are on your third book, right? I think I've published four, I've written five
Hmm.
memoirs, but I didn't publish the fifth one. And I'm about to start another one. And I've written several novels, but I'm kind of really honing in on my last novel that I've liked the best. And I've
Hmm.
used it actually as my study basis for building this program because I've just
Oh,
never
cool.
found teachers who were very concrete or specific. They're good at the level of prompting or ideas, but they're not good at the tools. And I'm a very pragmatic person. I kind
Yeah,
of
at the
need pragmatic
actual,
tools. Like you, I need to be
yeah,
walked through this, right? And so it's like, well, how does that
yeah.
happen? And so it's a very interconnected puzzle that I've worked together for the last 10 years into this kind of whole program that I'm teaching, you're getting a little taste of. So, on your
Hmm.
specific book that you're working on, I know that you've done a novel and stories before.
Hmm.
And so, what you're working on now, it is somebody who has some magical kind of capacities or what you're calling psychic abilities that are being
Hmm.
ripened and coming into their full gift. Is that right?
Hmm. Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. So, is it falling into the category of magical realism,
for
or you
sure.
want it
But
to
I
be
would I would
super
even call it,
grounded?
yeah, I would call it mystical realism. They're kind of similar, except that I think that it's yeah, I use mystical just because I think there's a little less it's a little more Western oriented, I think, just because that's my world.
Okay.
I don't have the full color. I feel like that say, I mean, I do have a lot of color. I don't want to say that, but just like I don't have the cultural upbringing of spirit animals and things like that.
Right, right,
So,
right. So how to
so,
do it in such a way that it's so grounded that it doesn't kind of lift off into the ethers, right? That's a big challenge.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so Voyage, it's interesting. You're saying rags to riches, and that could be just because there's a drafting thing happening, right? And
Hmm.
sometimes when we see this kind of at Rags to Riches, just like the Voyage and Return, well, Voyage and Return is actually falling down a rabbit hole. And that might be
Yeah.
more of what
Well,
you're
I
reading.
know, and I thought a little bit, that's where I was not sure about it because, in the middle of, I'm not sure when, at which point yet the character's mother dies, but there is a death in the book. I couldn't tell if that was the inciting incident or comes in the middle
Mm,
or comes pretty shortly after the beginning. Um, and I think there is a going down the rabbit hole then.
right.
But it's all sort of like, what do you do after someone you love dies? And that's been the main focus of your work. And then how do you come, like, there is sort of a going down the rabbit hole there. But I'm not really someone who goes, um, for me, the way this works is more subtle than that. There isn't the crisis. It's just sort of a blooming, um, things sort of bloom at each step versus like huge dive and then huge coming back up, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, but if somebody has an event that triggers a series of, revelatory powers. So the mother's
Hmm.
death leads to a kind of depth of grief that then leads through the suffering to a revelation of a gift. It's kind of rabbit hole because then at some
Hmm.
level, we're trying to figure out how to wield that. Let's think Darth Vader, right? The Star Wars is like Luke falls down into the recognition he's a Jedi, descended from Jedis, and so he has to figure out how to wield his power. So he first the loss, then the revelation of the power, then the mastery of the power, and then the emerging. And you were either going to go to the dark force or the light force, right? I mean, that's a kind of
Right.
gross simplification of that particular story, but that's kind of what it's sounding like. And what's so lovely about Rabbit Hole is that it allows you, well, it's already showing itself to you. It's listed as one of your three. So when somebody has multiple plots, I'm like, well, you probably need to draft through multiple times and just
Hmm.
know these plots so well that you can start kind of coding them out because that's what happens. They test out. That's how I always find plot in story, which
Hmm.
what we're going to do. I'm going to show you how I've sussed out plot. It's not that I can tell you what the plot is. Your
Hmm.
story tells me what the plot is.
Right.
And it's like it's right there. And this little handout that I've given you shows you the code to process of elimination, like a doctor diagnosing you. He's going to say,
Yeah.
well, you don't have this and you don't have that, so it's probably not that, right?
Yeah.
But you do have this and you do have that. And let's do a few more tests so we can get a few more markers that say, this is all pointing to this through these markers. And it could be, that could be wrong, but all indicators are based on our knowledge of what you've presented to us that you're going this way, right?
Hmm.
And plot is exactly the same way. It's not something, again, we say, oh my gosh, now I have cancer. It's like, no, it probably isn't the plot you like. It's probably actually the plot that you dislike.
Right.
It's like, because
Yeah.
evolution demands that we always grow and we always are changing and we're always moving forward on the evolutionary scale. And evolution doesn't care about pain or delight, it cares
Mhm.
about
Of
evolution. And so
course. Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
oh, well, plot is a lot like that. Plot starts
Hmm.
to work us through the material, and our narrator is moved as well. So it's all such an interesting thing. So all three of them sound fascinating. You could be writing Rags to Riches just to give yourself permission for the epic, meaning we start
Hmm.
in childhood and we end in adulthood, right?
Yeah.
But eventually that will snap off. And comedy's a whole different game, right? And that's just interesting that you've had all three arise. So
Hmm.
it's really cool that you've had that kind of success because now the bar is pretty high.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Or at this point in my life, I'm kind of like, or I could just enjoy my life and not try to go through that again.
Right, right. I feel you.
But
I mean, I did Blackbird in 2000, right? And
yeah,
all my
yeah.
books subsequently, and it is a ride, and
Hmm.
it's so
Hmm.
intense. Well, thank you for sharing all that with me.
Hmm.
That's wonderful. Um, do you have any other questions about plot before I bring those folks back?
No, I think it's interesting because Rags to Riches is this plot I've always hated, and so it'll be interesting to see. I thought there would be a really fun way to um, do a twist on it, So we'll see. And the other thing, maybe I'll book you separately for this at some point, but the inciting incident is so hard because I have a dead person starting to talk to this one person, a breakup with a best friend, and then a mother's death. And so
Right.
there's all three. And one starts the magical studies, and then in the middle of the magical studies, the death happens. So I don't really know where the book starts.
Okay.
And
Okay.
that's always been really difficult.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, well, I really encourage you to think about taking bones. It starts
Okay.
on the 30th. I'll send information on that. I mean, you could buy
Yeah.
the videos and just watch the videos in your leisure, but the live
Yeah.
debrief I only do like once a year. It's starting on the 30th. And we're actually pairing with a school in Paris, so that should be a lot of fun. But the live debrief is an amazing experience to take 10 weeks and walk all the way through your project from the
Mhm.
perspective of structure, because it sounds like with your experience, structure is going to be the thing that's going to talk to you at a profound level, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for
And
sure.
we hit structure 3 times. And if you understand structure, like you understand your elbow, right? You understand
Mhm.
your elbow works to move your arms. If you understand structure like you understand the way you move, then you can move into plot so seamlessly. But like you're
Mhm.
saying, I'm not sure where the start is. And that's the thing, because the start is there. It's just kind of buried under a lot of probably your really good ideas.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Conrad, you're with
Great.
us,
Well,
so
thank
you've
you.
hopefully been listening to all this.
Yes, I have.
And I'm about to bring the teams back in, but tell me quickly, what did you think your plot might be?
So I thought mine was the quest.
Okay.
It's kind of a multi-generational quest that starts with the midwives, the matriarchal midwife in medieval Andalusia,
Okay.
and so just I said it was the call was for women in medicine to be treated as equals and not be subservient to men as they are in society.
Okay.
And the journey for this first section, and I might be talking about two different books here. I don't know.
You might be
The
talking about a series, right?
series, yeah,
Yeah.
was they set out from Seville. The matriarch does with her daughter, who has just been told by her mentor, who is her father, a physician, that he's not going to certify her as a physician.
Okay.
So the mother takes her daughter and flees to Granada. And it's along that way they end up with ordeals,
Okay.
which I've identified in what I've written so far. The daughter gets raped. The person who's with them is wanted for the murder of the guy who was raping her. Um, then they finally arrive at Granada, where they think they're going to be able to have her declared a physician by another doctor.
Okay.
And they find out that he'll only do it if he gets a letter from her dad, and she finds out he's died. And then Granada falls to the Crusaders, and Muslims, they declare Muslim midwives are not allowed to deliver babies anymore,
Yeah.
and that they have to either convert to Catholicism or get out of the country. So that's kind of their arrival and their frustrations.
How much have you written?
I've got them halfway from Seville to Granada.
Okay, so do you have like a word count? How much you've written?
Um, I just have to estimate because I haven't zipped through the whole thing yet. I'm
Yeah.
probably around 30,000.
Okay, so into your first draft?
Yeah.
Okay.
I kind of have redrafted some things along the way, but
Yeah,
yeah,
and you've
basically,
watched all the videos. You've gone through this whole thing once. And so going through it again is a really incredible thing. People who study with me watch Bones of Storytelling multiple times, because as you're writing and you're going further along on the journey, you go back and you watch these videos and you're like, "Oh my gosh," have a whole new perspective because you've journeyed further in the story.
yeah,
Okay. So great. I'm glad that you're here and you're back from your visit. And I hope that you got to listen a little bit to what Rebecca was
yeah.
sharing,
I
because
was able to hear the whole thing actually.
it was such an interesting conversation to be sussing out with somebody who's a very accomplished writer, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so Laura and Lori are back. Mary and Mary are back. And I hope that you guys had good conversations and you'll be able to listen to watch the conversation I had with Rebecca and Conrad because both of those are great. So the Marys, uh, which plots did Mary? What is Mary in Paris's plot? Mary in Eugene. Tell me her plot.
Mary in Paris.
No, I want Mary and Eugene to tell me your plot, Mary in Paris.
Oh, okay.
What was her plot?
Okay.
Oh,
You want me to tell you Eugene's plot?
Yes.
Her plot, okay. Her plot is a memoir. It's a rags to riches,
Okay.
and maybe quest, but rags to riches mainly.
Okay.
And it's a theme of running between her, a mother who's left with three kids, and how she manages to struggle and bring them up, and a mother that she has become estranged from, but is working to become back together with. Is that the second quest? Yeah.
So, Mary, you're looking a little panicked in Eugene. Do you not remember what Mary in Paris's was?
yes, I do.
Okay, okay. Okay,
Yeah.
that's Zoom. That was just Zoom, not you. Okay.
No, I'm okay.
Okay. What was her plot, do you think? She
I
thought.
think definitely Quest. It's a series of stories about people that lived on a certain street in Paris. I find it fascinating. So each story is kind of would have its own plot, really. And most of them, it sounds like, are quests.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
and sounds fascinating. So, and different people that experience different things. So,
Okay, great. So, Laura, what was Lori's?
Lori's is rags to riches.
Okay.
And Lori went all the way through, thinking her manuscript is done, right? Or a draft is done. So she went all the way through the different phases. And talking about it, we didn't get all the way through that, but it definitely fits with the heroine's early life being like completely wretched. And then she has the initial success in that she escapes, and then she builds a life in the Los Angeles area, separate from Kansas, where she was just horribly oppressed. And then she gets married, and somehow we jumped forward a bit and kind of didn't really get exactly what happened, but some news comes from Kansas that sets a crisis in motion, and things begin to lead to the final ordeal. I don't know what that is, but I think it all fits and it's like really good.
Okay, and Lori, what was Laura's?
Laura's plot is monsters, and it seems to fit. I don't have the all the aspects of monsters in front of me because I didn't print that out, but the story starts in modern time, and the protagonist is kind of called to action when she is returns to her home uh, from San Francisco to her home, her previous home, where I don't remember where it is, but and her mother is on her deathbed and
um,
tells her about a key that will unlock a secret. And that's where the monsters are. The monsters are also all of humanity, that we all have monsters inside of us.
Okay.
And the plot is very, it has many aspects, and it starts out in modern, then it moves back in time to the settlers in Sonoma County in California. And it has an aspect of magical realism, which is very fascinating. And Laura is just, she's at the place of developing the plot. So
Okay.
that's, uh, but it's a very fascinating premise.
Yeah, okay, great. So good conversations had by all. The more you can understand plot, spending time with plot, wondering what your plot is, the more you'll be able to have it as a tool that's right there and ready versus one that you have to go refamiliarize yourself with in
Mhm.
order to use. And so I have found plot is one of those things that you got to use it. Like I have a tool in my shed, which is a giant rototiller. Okay. I don't use a rototiller every day. So every time I'm going to go near that rototiller, first, I'm going to be very frightened because it's got six big blades rotating. It's
Oh my
very
God.
complicated. It scares me to death. What am I going to tear up with it? My feet, my hands, some little critter. So that's not a tool I use every day. I should be using it more often in order to, when I use it, it's there for me. So think of plot a bit like a rototiller. It's not a pair of clippers. It's one of those tools that the most important thing isn't necessarily to name your plot today. The most important thing is to play with it in relation to your story and guess which one it is. And it's interesting because most of you have said multiple plots options, except, a few of you have said, I think it was Conrad, he's like, yeah, it's this, it's the quest. So that's fine, but you're going to always be beholden with plot to surrender what you think it is in order to write your story because it wants to come out of you organically and it will lay out in a particular way. And that's how its evolution is going to take place. Sometimes it's one or two drafts, other times it's 10 drafts. It's not really up to you, it's up to the story itself. We want to impose our will on our stories, but that's like imposing our will on our child. And we all know if you're parents how that works. We can have visions for our children, but there is an organic evolution that will take place that will blow our minds, we hope, or simply surprise us. What happened? And so, plot is one of those things I highly encourage you to first and foremost understand. Once you understand plot, and the best way to do it is to apply it to your own work, but also to other work. So, here we have Overcoming the Monster. None of you mentioned Overcoming the Monster. Many of you mentioned Rags to Riches. So, one of the ways to immediately develop a deeper relationship with plot, if you're doing Rags to Riches, is go read one of these stories, King Arthur or all of them. Ugly Duckling, Superman, Popeye, Cinderella, My Fair Lady. David Copperfield is actually an extraordinary book to read Rags to Riches, as is Jane Eyre. There's also the Aladdin and the Gold Rush, but these are the specific examples. So pick one or two of these if they are your plot kind of indicator, true north at this point. But eventually, and I'm going to go into this for a second. Let's just continue. Okay, say yours is the quest. Okay, then go find one of these books and read them. So Conrad is very clear it's the quest. All right, so go read the Odyssey. Oh my gosh, I don't want to read the Odyssey. It's not that long, right? Pilgrim's Progress. Go watch The Raiders of the Lost Ark, right? Watership Down. You don't have to read all of them, but kind of get in there and have a chance. Another one I believe is, and it's not on here, but if you're looking for a contemporary example of the quest, go read The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead. That is a quest, and he does an absolutely pitch perfect job delivering that to us. So, Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead. Perfect example of a quest in the modern context. Pilgrim's Progress, I think, would be a great one just to read because it's always good to read the classics. Odyssey, obviously, is such a great example, but it gives you an idea of the vast scope of the quest plot, which seems in alignment with what you're doing, Conrad. Those of you who are doing Voyage and Return, again, here are all the great examples. All right. I haven't heard anybody talk about Rebirth. Rebirth is often, oh, and Rebecca, you were talking comedy, so go look at comedies, right? Expose yourself to the things that, if you pick three plots, go expose yourself to stories that have been told that are in alignment with that plot. Now, a lot of these plots actually are semi in alignment, but what happens is, and this is what Christopher Booker's primary argument is in this story, is that over the last 250 years since the age of Romanticism, we have remarkably deteriorated as a species when it comes to our capacity to tell story. Why? Because the ego is now king. Our desires as humans are more important than the collective. We're not pouring ourselves into others anymore. We're pouring ourselves into ourselves. We are self-absorbed. We are our God now. Science is our God. All these other things are our gods other than the great divine universe. And so we've had this rotation and this perversion of plots. That's why when I am showing you these particular plots, they're the pure version. They haven't been destroyed by ego. Now go read Moby Dick. I have the whole list of all the books that have completely lost the plot, but I can also provide that for you. But that's that deeper study you're able to do. So first off, find a pure version of your plot, watch it, read it, however it can come to you, and get familiar with the plot you're nesting close to. And the more you can do that, the more it'll be there as an automatic function for you to relate to. And it would really help if you have the handout while you're reading the book, so you can double check the 5 aspects of the structure, other than comedy, which only has the 3 parts of the structure. But I mean, Rebecca, if you're really serious about potentially writing a fiction or writing a series of stories that follows the comedy model, go watch Stranger Than Fiction with Emma Thompson and Will Ferrell. That is a modern comedy, and it follows this structure brilliantly, and you can check each one of them off. But every single one of these tragedies, say you watched Thelma and Louise or you read Lolita or The Picture of Dorian Gray, you'll be able to tick all of these boxes off. They're all going to be there. If they're not, that's not the plot. If you can't have just 3, it has to be all aspects of the plot through the structure in order for it to be the plot that your story is rising and above, or your study of it. So this becomes the next kind of phase about plot. You've picked your plots, you have a couple or 1 or 3. Now go read or watch things that are following it and look on these handouts, because there are the clues. You can also go to my site page, which is the Blackbird Studio for Writers, and I have done plot studies on several books. Hamnet is a beautifully written book by Maggie O'Farrell. Beautifully written book, and it follows a gorgeous plot structure right here, rebirth. And I actually tick off where it is. So if you're a person who, getting closer to the study of plot, you can go in here and see the breakdown of why that works. And it's not just Hamnet. I've done several contemporary books here. And so you find this on my blog on the Blackbird Studio for Writers website. Divine Rebellion, here we go. And so when you click on it, then you get in there and you start to look at, here I wrote out the structure for Till We Have Faces. And then I looked at the value line, what was the core value? And then there was the plot. Didn't I have it? Oh, and it was rebellion against the one. And so I broke down that plot, because there are 2 other plots. One is the mystery, and the other one is called rebellion against the one, or rebellion against the divine, right? And what does that look like? I don't see rebellion against the one as often, and so I hadn't done a lot of study with that, and I haven't done a lot with students. But again, go through this blog and you'll get lots of examples. Last thing I'll say is Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. If any of you are familiar with Maggie O'Farrell, she's a very successful writer. She makes it, sells a ton of books. Hamnet is a perfectly pitched book. Then she came out with The Marriage Portrait, and it is the opposite. It drops, it falls. It's a tragic plot. But commercially, there's something that happens in our psyches over the last 250 words of the deterioration of story. Something happens in our psyche that we celebrate even murder as a victory under the right circumstances. And this is actually very disturbing, actually. And if you read The Marriage Portrait, it seems as if she's victorious because she's escaped from an abusive husband at the end. But as I talk to my students about this, hold on. To escape, she puts her beloved maid, who has served her loyally for years, in her place to be murdered, and escapes. And my students were like, so great. She's so victorious. She's a woman who's overcome the man. And I'm like, you're talking propaganda right now. You're not talking the basic plot. The basic plot is not heroic if a person sacrifices a loyal servant to gain their freedom. It is the opposite. It is tragic. And I think most of my students wanted to throw tomatoes at me because we're so absolutely in love with the idea of women overcoming abuse that we lose track at what cost. And all heroic stories come at a cost. If the hero isn't truly heroic, then, you know, they aren't. And it's really not emotional. It's about volition. It's about, you know, our ability to have control, the hero to have control over situations. So that's a lot. Plot is a conversation I could talk about for 10 years. And we've done 1 hour, and you've looked at a tiny snippet from a class that I've done. The last thing I will tell you is don't rush plot. Don't rush it. Keep writing, trusting your gut, and plot will bubble up from your interior. I've just done my 9th draft of my novel, which I'll show you, which is very painful for me to admit. I'm a New York Times bestseller. Why have I done 9 drafts over 23 years? It's because I did not understand plot and I didn't understand structure. And I can tell you right now, I still don't know what the plot of my book is. Why? I understand plot, but I haven't looked yet. I'm in the stage, as I'm going to show you on the screen, I'm in the stage of crafting. So this is my 10th draft, you can see right here. And you see all these chapters. There's 93 chapters, 186,000 words. And I've written it, again, 9 times. The drafts go back to 2019. I mean, they go much further back than that. But what I've learned about plot is I can't impose plot on my story. Plot reveals itself. So I have to allow myself to keep writing. And right now I'm in the stage of big. And then I've sent it to an editor. And then it's going to be skinnied down. And once she is able to tell me, Jennifer, this has got to go, this has got to go, this has got to go, condense, do this with time, then I'll see the plot. I suspect it's rebirth because what I'm seeing based on the rebirth plot and the 5 different things, all those categories have been fulfilled. But it's too fat right now. It's 196,000 words. Anyone who's been published knows that that's a horror of a book. That's just simply not doable. Unless you're, you know, written an incredible book, it should be 120. Actually, it should even be 70, but it's not going to be 70. It's probably going to, I can buy 120 or 130 maybe. So hopefully this helps all of you so much think about plot. And I know we're kind of at time, but I do want to have a second for you to ask any questions. If people have to go, please go. I'm going to keep recording so I can include those questions after. But I'd love to hear your questions. Anything that I've just told you that you'd like to have me clarify. Yeah, Mary and Eugene.
Okay, so my memoir kind of has 2 storylines that relate, but they're different storylines. Can they have 2 different plot lines, or
Might be
is
two
that?
different, it might be 2 different books.
I know that's what they originally were,
Yeah.
but if they go together, they should all be one plot line, right?
In the end, it will be. It's not that they should be, it's that they will be. They will be,
Okay,
or you'll just get so exhausted, you'll leave it where it is, but that doesn't mean it's done. That when you have the plot shows itself to you, you know, oh my gosh, that's it. I've gone the distance. Go the distance. So you don't have some shrew like me coming along and going, you didn't understand your plot. You could probably make a fortune. In many cases, people make fortunes as writers, not because they're good or not because they're knowledgeable. They make fortunes because they've hit a trend or a gestalt, right? But I rather have writers who work with me have knowledge. And that way they actually can go the distance with the depths of what they've learned, right? And see these revelations. And that's what I'm hoping my own novel will be. It will be it'll be a series of revelations that will bring me to understanding of what I've created. So Mary, you're just tired right now, right? And you
I'm
probably have
so tired.
part one and part two of one big book, and they can possibly do what you're talking about. Like Rebecca talks about a memoir in stories, right?
Yes.
So you might have one story and two story under two covers, but they're totally different plots, right? You could do that. That's very experimental. Why not try something that's unusual and different, right?
They're not that, I mean, they're not that different, but yeah.
Yeah,
I
you as the through line character, or it could be just book one and book two. I mean, Black, I wrote 5 books about my life, for goodness sake.
I know.
I just can't
Great
stop
books.
wriing about my life.
No, I get it. I get it. And I have 100,000 words sitting in limbo. 100,000
Yes,
words
I get you. You need to
sitting in limbo.
you need to come in and do consults. You need
I do
somebody to
because
put you need to put some circles around you, a little corral around you.
I've always been this way, and I'm very. It's good to hear you talking again. So
Yeah.
it's
It
been
helps that discipline. You're probably ready for some of that discipline. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Any other thoughts?
I have a question, but it's
Yeah,
off
Mary.
track of what you've been talking about.
Yeah.
You just showed us on the sidebar here, the outline of all your chapters,
hmm
your rewrites. Can you recommend anything on how to organize our book and our rewrites on our
I
computer?
use a program called Scrivener, and
I know what that is.
I actually
have
have a little tutorial on how I use Scrivener, and I will include that in the follow-up email for this collective. Yeah.
Okay, what I've heard about Scrivener is that it's difficult. Is it difficult to convert when you have to go to Microsoft Word or something like that?
Well, I
Like the publishers don't.
originally created it in Microsoft Word, but what happened was, as I was working on my book, my spell checker became Italian. And I was like, okay, I'm not writing an Italian book. I'm writing an English book, American book about Italy. And so I couldn't get Microsoft to stop doing that. And Scrivener came to me then. So what I did is I just cut and paste every chapter from Word and I put it into Scrivener, and I've been using Scrivener ever since. And then when I'm done with my book, Mary, I cut and paste back into a Word document because my editor and my publisher will only use Word. They won't use
Exactly.
Scrivener. So it's a pain in the butt, but it's also a good pain in the butt because it slows you down and just lets you, I compose in Scrivener and then I submit in Word. So I keep the two programs going. And frankly, Scrivener's spell check is disastrous. So I don't use Scrivener's for spell check. I've since downloaded Word and uploaded a new version of Word that has an English dictionary, thank goodness. But I also use a separate spell check program to help me because spell check is always a nightmare, right?
Right.
So I'll include the video on how I use Scrivener, and it's a very simple tutorial, but it's just another tool. I love it. I like it's complicated, but it can be overwhelming. Absolutely overwhelming.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? You guys, what a pleasure to have you here. And you'll notice we had 10 people sign up, and not everybody comes to this conversation because this is a hard conversation to have, to talk about classic literature in a book that's the size of a book, a doorstop. This is not for everybody, but it's for the earnest writer who is earnestly seeking excellence. And that's all of you, because you've been sitting here for an hour and you sat here an hour before last week. Next week, we're going to talk about antagonistic forces, which holds hands with plot. So once you're able to get a hold of plot enough, it's time to start talking about antagonistic forces, and the two of them work so tightly together. So I'm going to send you another video and a little series of handouts, and so you'll have a more concentrated teachings, and then we'll go from there. What would I like you to do between that week and this week? Just watch the video and be thinking about the core antagonistic forces in your own story, because you don't have just one. It's not just Darth Vader. It's going to be a whole series of integrated internal conflicts. Most antagonistic forces exist within. And so it's the psychology of your character that you're really after. What are their downfalls? They drink. They kick their cat. They yell at their wife. I mean, what are their psychological downfalls? Those are in your hero. Those become more antagonistic forcey than the actual antagonistic force externally. So this is the thing to be thinking about next week, and it should be lots of fun. Okay? Go forth, have a week. Thank you. And I'll be putting together a post so you have a concentrated version of this. Okay?